All right, everyone, we're back. This is the Quizlet webinar on a brand new feature that we launched a few weeks ago called Quizlet Diagrams. And we're so excited to be sharing this new feature with you. Here at Quizlet HQ, we've been working on this feature all summer long, testing it with a lot of students and teachers, so we're really excited that you finally are able to use this feature and discover more creative ways of using it. But this presentation is going to focus on the basics of creating a diagram, studying a diagram, and then sharing a few great ideas from our teacher community of ways that you can incorporate diagrams into your teaching. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so who's on this call today? I mentioned before, my name is Amalia. I work at Quizlet supporting our teacher community. For example, running our Teacher Ambassador program, which is an awesome program for our most passionate teacher advocates. Laura Oppenheimer is also on this call. She's our Director of Marketing, and she's here to help us with our Q&A session at the end of the call. Do you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. So excited you could all join us to learn all about diagrams, and that we're super excited about.
Yay. Okay, so just a quick agenda before we get started. We're going to be talking about creating diagrams, all the different study activities that your students can use on your diagrams. Then we'll do a quick tour of the website so you can actually see this feature in action. Then I'll be sharing a few great ideas from our teacher community. And then finally, we'll go over a few more resources for sharing diagrams with others, and end with about 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A. Okay, so this is the main feature we're talking about today, interactive diagrams on Quizlet. And what's so incredible about this is that for the first time, we're really supporting visual learning, visual material, and kind of terms, but within a context. So as you can see in this example, I'm learning all the terms about the anatomy of my flower, but I'm actually seeing where these parts exist in a flower. So just that kind of deepened understanding, that contextual understanding is now possible right on Quizlet, harnessing the same powerful study activities that your students know and love, and the creation tools that you have used in creating sets. So let's dig into that deeper. So what can you teach with diagrams? These are just a few visual examples of diagram sets that we've seen created. So as you can see, maps, this is a great way to study actual locations on a map. Human anatomy, the periodic table of elements. You can imagine lots of different parts of different instruments, cycles or flows, even famous painting or events in history. And we've seen actually a lot of these where you could be studying a foreign language or English and be understanding terms or objects within a context of a room. So these are just a few easy ideas, and we'll go into more creative ideas, but just to give you a sense of the possibilities with this new tool. So let's talk about creation. It's really easy. It's in the same area where you would go to create a normal Quizlet study set, which is more of a text-based set. So you would go to the Indigo header and click on Create, and then you'll see this new option to actually upload an image. And this is a free option. You can upload any image of your choosing to turn into a diagram. And then the second step is to actually add locations to your diagram. So you can see in this example, I've tagged an area on my image, which I then, third step, label with a term. So just to talk a little bit more about the options you have in creating your diagram on Quizlet, this is a great example of a lot of different location types that you can add to your image. So you can see on the left and in the example in the center, we have points, we have rectangles, and we have kind of custom shapes. So you can be really creative about how you use these to signify a certain area on your image. Another really cool thing that we added to make editing your images easier is a blur tool. So if you go into that icon on the right, which is highlighted in this picture, and if you have text on your image, maybe it's a traditional kind of diagram of the brain, and every area is marked. You can actually blur out the text so that your students aren't seeing that when they're studying, and you can use that image in this kind of effective way. We also have a zoom tool, so if you want to be really detailed about maybe the custom shapes that you're adding, it's easy to zoom in on your image and get as detailed as you need to be. Okay. So, and what's great about diagrams is it essentially adds another side of your cards on Quizlet. So a traditional Quizlet study set has a term side, a definition side, and an optional picture side. So that means that, you can enter whatever makes sense in that term area, that definition area, a question, an answer, a word, and a translation. Anything really works in that simple format. But what's great about this is we've had this kind of fourth side of location. So now your terms, your definitions, potentially your images link back to this diagram. And so what's great is that as you're adding points in your diagram, we're actually parsing all that information into kind of traditional list format below it. And that's where you can add kind of more layers. Like in this example, I have my map, but I'm also studying country flags. So that's a great use of an additional image beyond your diagram location. Okay, and then once you save your diagram, what does it look like? So now if you create a diagram set, you will see on the set page this big area that is showcasing your diagram. And so you can see that if you hover over those areas, you're actually going to see the term and potentially the definition, if you wrote one in, appear on your screen. And then below that is kind of more of a traditional set format where you have your term and your definition, your location listed. And then you'll see your study modes as usual, kind of right under the title above your diagram. And so how do students study your diagram? This is a really fun part of this. This project was actually modifying a few of our current popular study activities to really work with this image format, this diagram format. So right now what we offer is learn, write, and match with kind of diagram-specific study capabilities. So you can see in these examples, Learn is kind of more an adaptive study plan, with several different question types, guiding your students from beginning to understand words to mastery. So that's a really great one to use now with the diagram format. Write is a simple prompt with diagram image and write in your term. And then match is a variation on the most popular, I think, study mode on Quizlet. It's a timed game. It's super fun. And now you're seeing your diagram show up there and actually matching those locations to your terms on the right. Okay, and another great aspect of this is that your students can study their diagrams on the mobile app. So we have a free mobile app for iOS and for Android. Easy to download, and if you create a diagram and you share it with your students, they'll be able to access and study it on web, on a desktop computer, as well as a tablet or their mobile device. So really crucial to ask your students to download this app so they have access to all of your material no matter where they go. Okay, so that's kind of a brief intro into the possibilities of diagrams, but let's actually see it in action. So something we built that we're really excited about is this kind of visual showcase of a lot of content that teachers and students helped make for the launch of this new product. So let's actually zoom in a bit so that you can see these a little bit better. As you can see, we've curated these popular anatomy, physiology, biology, kind of these key topic areas where we thought diagrams made so much sense. So you can see all of these are ready to go, ready for you to explore, ready for you to use with your students, or make copies of to modify and use with your students. There's so many different categories here. So make sure to explore that on more on your own time. But how you get there is really just this prompt you'll see on the upper left if you log into your account, browse diagram. So really quick link to get access to all of this great material. And then actually, this is not all of the diagrams that we have on Quizlet. This is just kind of a curated, few of them. If you actually search, use Quizlet search up here and enter your subject or a topic or your term, diagram sets will actually be populated there as well. So as the Quizlet community makes more diagram sets, you'll see more diagram options in search. So just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and actually go into one of these sets. I'm going to go ahead and use map, maybe the easiest map for me, just so I don't embarrass myself. Let's go into this one. So I've gone ahead and I've selected this diagram. And you can see, here's my diagram image. I can hover over all of these areas to see, maybe just at a glance what I'm looking at. And then if I scroll down, I actually see this list view of my terms and their, corresponding locations, which is really cool. And just like any Quizlet set, we have the option for audio, for stars, if your students want to focus on particular terms out of their diagram set. It's easy to do. You can actually even zoom on this image or zoom out. And then here are the study modes. So if your diagram set has terms and what we're calling locations, which again are these areas on your diagram, you'll see these three options for how to study this set. We have learn, we have write, we have match. Let's go ahead and do this so you can get a sense of what this looks like. All right, start the game. Okay, so now I'm seeing my diagram on the left, and I have to match it with terms on the right. So, Laura, I don't know if you know these.
I don't know anything about Australia.
Some of these are pretty easy. Some of them are a little bit more difficult. Yes. Can I beat my high score? No. That's still pretty good. Still pretty good. I'm in second place with my last high score. Great. So that's just an easy way to study diagrams. Just one of the ways that we offer. I could keep playing that forever. And then we also have learn and we have write. We can just pop into this one to see what that looks like. As you'll see, I'll be prompted with my diagram, and I'll have to choose which area is Victoria. Nice. And another great aspect of learn is that it's very encouraging. We use a lot of fun messaging and emojis to make sure that students are kind of, motivated to keep going. So there we go. And like I said before, this study mode actually gets more difficult as more time passes. So harder question types, and it's keeping track of what terms I know, other ones that I'm having more difficulty with, and prompting me with the latter group just to make sure I'm practicing what I really need to practice. It's a really great activity for your students. Okay, so now that we've seen the set page, I'm not going to go over all this tool area, but if this was a set that you really liked and you wanted to make a copy of to make some edits to, you could do that right here. All the same options that you would see on a traditional Quizlet set are still here on the diagram set. So let's go ahead and create something from scratch. So like we saw in the presentation before, we now have this new area, which is a drag and drop area for images. You can also just upload an image if you click on here. So let's go ahead and do that. Desktop. All right, brain diagram. Let's upload this. Great. So it's really that easy. I can, find an awesome image. I can take a picture. I can, upload that to my computer and drag it into this field to have it be uploaded into Quizlet. And what's interesting about this image is it's a great diagram image, but it actually has the text still on it. So I'm just going to show you a few capabilities of this. But for example, if I wanted to use points, I could easily go like this and add this point. And I actually prefer if my text or if my image has text to save myself a step. If I'm not, or if I want to make sure that the content listed here is right, I can actually blur out the text on my image after I enter the text as terms. Great. So a different option could be a square. Maybe it doesn't make so much sense on this diagram, but I just want to show you what that looks like. Okay. And then this one is a custom shape tool, which is really, really awesome. You can imagine, especially for a map or any kind of area where you really want to designate the true area here. So I'll try to do this more quickly, but you can get as detailed as you want with this to make sure that you have a really custom shape. Great. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to enter those. Something that's worth noting at this point is that I'm using the upgraded Quizlet Teacher account, and Quizlet Teacher is our kind of premium subscription product just for teachers with a lot of advanced features around content creation, tracking student progress, removing ads for you and your students, a lot of great features like that. But part of that package actually gives you access to rectangles and custom shapes. So if you do have a free or a basic Quizlet account, you'll be able to add up to 8 points. And if you have an upgraded account, you can use either of these two other advanced tools as well as add unlimited points. So depending on what you're studying, that could be a really helpful tool to have. Okay, and now let's show you actually the blur tool. So if you didn't see that, I actually just clicked into this little edit option on my upper right of my image. And I have a few different options here. I can kind of pan the image, which means move it around. If it was a bigger image, maybe I'd want to do that. And then I can blur out text. So I know that I already marked these. So let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. There we go. As easy as that. Drag, and it blurs. I'm just going to save those. What was the other one that I did? Frontal lobe. Okay. Great. So that's saving my image. I have my locations marked. And now if you go into here, you can still use the great tools that we provide for normal study set creation, which is kind of auto-define, which is a collection of popular, oops, I got to select my language first. So I'm selecting English, and that will help me make sure that the definitions I get are correct. I'm not sure why that's still popping up. Oh, it's asking me separately what kind of definitions I want. Great. Okay. So there we go. Easy as that. Perfect. Great. And so you can see that this process can be really, really fast using all of these tools. And of course, you can upload additional images if you want kind of to add another layer of context to this set. You can, if you have an upgraded Quizlet teacher account, add your own custom audio. If I wanted to, record a verbal hint or a sample sentence or something like that, it's really that easy. So let's go ahead and save this. And now I have my diagram set. And something that we didn't see on the other diagram that I showed you before was because it had terms and locations as the only information on the set, you only kind of saw those diagram-specific study modes. But now what I'm seeing here is the access to all of these different study modes, which will allow my students to study the terms and definitions in kind of a traditional study mode. So these ones do not yet incorporate the diagram, but your students can still study these terms and definitions. And if you add images here too, with all of these other study modes that don't have this little diagram symbol on it. So just good to note that you have a lot more options depending on how much information you actually add to your set. Great, so I think that's all that I wanted to demo for today. So let's go back into the presentation. Okay, so up next, I wanted to share a few great ideas that we've gotten from teachers using the new diagram tool who have been really creative about incorporating this into their lesson plans and really, gone beyond what we imagine diagrams, what you could do with diagrams. So just showcasing a few great ideas from other teachers. So you can see here, this teacher has created a room in the house, but if you actually read this, it says, my students and I are studying objects and rooms in the home. After playing with a house diagram that I downloaded, the students and I decided to design and label our own ideal rooms. Students helped me select pictures from the internet and label them in class. Students are doing a room label activity tonight for homework to mimic diagrams. We'll also play some match or live with the set when they return to class. So this is a really kind of well-rounded from start to finish idea of a few different activities that you can use and then kind of supplement with this actual Quizlet diagram set which students can study at home or even in class. Another idea from Tim is I'm using the diagram Quizlet to practice and identify various handheld tools we'll be using in my woodworking class. It's interesting because he has this kind of setup where you're seeing all these tools together. There's another diagram set of his which is focusing on certain areas of a certain type of saw. So understanding a tool, understanding what the different pieces of the tool are, how to use them. There's a lot of kind of cool ways to use diagrams for kind of real life objects learning. This was a great idea from a teacher I love this idea. She's teaching history, and she's actually using this diagram image area. I don't know if you can see this, but we have all these points along the Berlin Wall, and she's actually using these points as a timeline structure. So each of these points is a different fact based on a time period, and she's put them in order like a timeline. So that's a great way to kind of leverage the space, is like adding more context to what your students are learning, but really leveraging the structure to make sure that they can study this image. I really, really like that idea. And as you can see in this kind of description, she's talking about having her class do a virtual field trip to Berlin to study the Berlin Wall, and then after doing some reading and understanding the history, students will learn and study with this diagram at home. This is a great idea from another ambassador, really incorporating this study of articles and translating the vocabulary that appears in an article. So that's a really common use case that we see on Quizlet, is people who are reading articles and then studying that vocabulary. This is a great way to kind of introduce a visual component to that, so you really understand. You could even do kind of the pieces of an article and what those symbolize and what those stand for. So really cool use case. This one's really sweet, and again, this is showcasing how diagrams really add this extra layer of context and kind of relationship learning. So not only am I learning the names for family members, I'm really seeing in context how they relate to each other. And this is a really beautiful, simple set that this teacher has created. She has younger students, and they're really enjoying diagram match with this sort of structure. So teaching coding. This is a teacher who is actually teaching JavaScript and using the diagram format to point out vocabulary of things that the students will need to know. So again, being able to see this in context, not just like studying the words in a vacuum, but seeing what they mean and where they go. This is another great example from a teacher who actually trains teachers. So he is a technology teacher, and this is a wonderful diagram breaking down the different areas of a Google Doc or your Google Drive. So again, so awesome that you can actually hover over these areas and see what you call them as well as what they do or what you find in them. Really great use for that. And as this teacher mentions, I teach teachers to use technology, so whenever we can model combining technologies or use one tech tool to teach another, it's a really big win. We see a lot of teachers use Quizlet in this way, and we always love seeing that because it makes so much sense. Great, and then one other thing I wanted to highlight is that if you're as excited about diagrams as we are, we definitely encourage you to share this new feature with your colleagues, and we're really hoping to make this easy for you. We've actually created a presentation template all about diagrams, which is really similar to what I've been presenting today, with more kind of speaker notes on things that maybe you should mention at this point, or how to make it an interactive session versus something that you're just presenting to the group. So to make sure to check out that link, and then we'll make sure actually in the follow-up email to this webinar to share these links again, so if you're not jotting them down now, you'll have access to them tomorrow. And then there's actually more things that we offer as resources for any teachers who are presenting Quizlet to other teachers. We have some great handouts that explain what Quizlet is to you, your students, or their parents. We also have some quick demo videos that are really great for diagrams, for understanding what Quizlet is, kind of higher level. We also have certificates that you can print and customize if you want to give more sort of PD credit for your colleagues' participation in a presentation like this. So make sure to check out all of those great resources at this link. Great. So I'm not going to play this video, but I just did want to highlight that we've created this awesome short diagrams overview about creation and studying, which is included in the presentation template. So if you are doing a presentation and it's kind of something that you're presenting in a shorter time period, you don't have time for or space for an interactive session, you can show this video, and it's a great way to kind of get the understanding across of the potential of diagrams, how easy it is, all that good stuff. Great, so I think we've reached the end of our presentation. Now we're open for Q&A.
Awesome. There's a bunch of great questions already asked, and we'll try to answer the ones that are most applicable to the biggest group. over the next few minutes. And remember, if you have a question, a general question, please ask it in your webinar control panel. If it's a specific question to your account, the best place to get help with that is through our Help Center. But yeah, we can just dive in. I see a couple of questions here about where sort of images that you can use in your diagram. So Jacqueline says, can pictures come directly from the internet, or do they have to be downloaded onto the computer first? And that's a great question.
Yeah, so maybe we can, well, why don't I just go back into, I'll go back into the kind of demo screen just so we can explore some of this stuff as we talk about it. But that's a great question. So there has been a little confusion about this space, so I'm just going to go back into it. And I have seen people before kind of, use kind of Google image search, find an image, and then actually try dragging it directly from their Google Chrome or whatever browser and straight into this box area. And that doesn't actually work. And if you're trying to do that, you should see an error message that says, hey, you need to download this, and then kind of drag it in from your desktop. But yeah, the answer is that if you do find an image somewhere else, make sure to download it on your desktop and then drag it in to upload it in this space.
Yeah, the other thing that, in terms of creating diagrams, and Molly, if you just want to show again how you might copy a diagram. So, for example, let's say you are teaching chemistry and you're teaching like meiosis. You could probably search for meiosis in the search bar. And then
I know there's mitosis.
Mitosis. It's been a while. Or this is actually biology even. You can see that we have a bunch of diagrams that match this, and you can click on one of these, and let's see, this is a good one. Yeah, so you can see they've marked different stages, and here, if you didn't want to go through the trouble of creating your own diagram, but maybe you wanted to customize the definitions a little bit, you could just make a copy of the diagram, and then
lots of good options here.
Yeah, so that's another great way. That's a beautiful looking one.
Yeah, it's a great diagram. Yeah, so here's a beautiful example, and like Laura was saying, just in your little toolbar area here, right under the diagram set's title, you'll see the option to make a copy. And it's totally fine to use this set as is with your students. You can add it to classes, you can add it to folders, you can share the link, they can use it. But if you are intending to make edits to it, or if you want to add more information, making a copy is a really easy way to do that.
Well, maybe we can actually use this then to answer another question. Debbie asked, where did the definition for the brain come from? They seem to load so quickly. Have they already been loaded at a prior time? So maybe we can just show off. This is a feature it's pretty powerful, but is a little bit hidden. So sometimes people don't even know it's there. It's called our auto-define feature. And so a little bit of just information about Quizlet. We have almost 200 million study sets on Quizlet that have already been created, which means that for almost every single term that you might put into Quizlet, somebody else, and probably tens, 20s, hundreds of other people, have already put that term and a corresponding definition into Quizlet. And so what we're doing is looking at that information on the back end and saying, hey, if you put in cell cycle, we bet that somebody else has already done that. And we give you a whole host of different things that you can just sort of scroll through quickly and add in. So you obviously don't have to use any of these for your definition, but if you're creating new content on Quizlet, it definitely speeds up the process. And we think our algorithm and the analysis we've done here is pretty powerful to help you quickly and efficiently create study materials.
Great point.
Anil wants to know, let's see, how can diagrams be used for English grammar?
English grammar.
I'm not sure if this is specific to ESL or learning English as a foreign language, or just, or more specifically learning grammar. But we can definitely talk through. There's a lot of sort of using diagrams to help learn foreign language content. And then let's see what other people are using.
Yeah, and as we said, more great results will populate here as soon as people start making more diagrams. But here, let's see how this person is using the diagram feature for this. So in this case, this person has actually uploaded what looks like maybe a past worksheet and is actually marking the areas within that sentence with terms so that are now linked to this location on the diagram. And we've seen this a little bit of people actually repurposing maybe written worksheets, things focusing on grammar, sentence structure, and uploading them in this area so that they're now, able to be studied in a much more interactive, engaging, accessible sort of way. You're not just depending on a piece of paper for your students to get excited about as homework. You're actually creating it on Quizlet and allowing them so many different other ways to study in fun ways.
And Neil actually added a follow-up said, or he or she, sorry, said as a foreign language. So do you want to actually just go to our
the showcase?
Showcase, and we can show some of the creative ways people are using diagrams to help teach and learn foreign languages.
Of course. So like we mentioned before, we have this kind of beautiful curated area of recommended sets, and you can see we have Spanish, we have French, we have German, we have English language learning. A lot of these examples are showing objects within a context, parts of a face, things that you would see on your desk, things you'd see in the kitchen, job types. These are all great ideas for kind of providing, here's a house in German, providing a little bit more context and kind of learning to support language learning. So feel free to take a look at this. Again, this is accessible to anyone. Just go to your account, log in, click on Browse Diagrams. Oops, I clicked into this one. But this is a fun use case too, right? It's not just purely academic things. We've heard a lot from coaches who are using this, or PE teachers who are using this for understanding game positions, all sorts of good stuff like that.
I see a couple of questions, one from Lisa, another one about someone else, sorry, who are looking for where they can find some of the great resources you discussed. So the PD presentation,
yep,
and other teacher resources like videos. Where can teachers go to find those?
Such a good question. So if you are logged into your account, I don't know how much you've explored this navigation area, but if you see on the upper right, my username is listed here, and that's how I know I'm logged into my account. So if I click on that little arrow, I actually see a lot more options. So there's some quick links to my settings. I could log out, go to the Help Center, which is where a lot of great articles live on just basic how to use Quizlet, and then I get to this For Teachers page. So let me click into that. And this is basically a page that we developed just for teachers. It has a great, if you're sending people who have never heard of Quizlet, or that you've told a little bit about Quizlet, but you want them to get excited about it and really understand what they're looking at and what they can do with it, this is a great page to send them to as well. We have a great video here featuring some real teachers and students from Barton Middle School in Texas. And if you actually scroll down, for new users or people who have not really explored Quizlet on their own before, this is a great way to kind of understand some key values that it will add to the teaching experience and the studying experience. Then actually, if I'm on this page, I can actually just easily click there and I'll be taken to this area. And these are more resources just for teachers. If I'm brand new, I have information about webinars. I learn more about Quizlet Live, which again is such an easy, great way to get started on Quizlet. Super fun for your students, really easy for you to manage. And then visit our Help Center for kind of more articles on, how do I create a set? How do I use audio? A lot of great questions are answered there. And then if maybe I'm a user who has used Quizlet before, uses it kind of lightly, but really want to get more involved, I can learn about upgrades, I can learn about group upgrades, I can join the ambassador program if that's something you're interested in. There's all these great quick links here. And then as far as the PD resources, there's this big banner here. If I click into that, it takes me to a great page with all of these different presentation resources. So again, if you're inspired to do your own PD session or workshop with your colleagues, with your network. A lot of great ideas here. We've done a lot of the work for you already. We have these wonderful branded templates that you can easily make a copy of or download, adapt, customize, and then use to present to your colleagues. Handouts and certificates, so I just want to maybe show what one of these looks like. So for example, hopefully this will load for me. We have this great FAQ for students. So let's say I'm telling my students about Quizlet for the first time. I want to get them signed up and into my class. This is just an easy kind of visual checklist of things they need to do that, and also understand how they should use Quizlet, that they should download the app, that they have all these different ways to practice their material. So again, this page is available in our Help Center under the Teachers section, but also through that teacher page, which you can get from any page on Quizlet if you're logged in. And more videos, so this is a brief overview about what Quizlet is, what it offers. We have this great video on diagrams, specifically how to create, how to study, and then a tidbit about how to use Quizlet with our Google Classroom integration, as well as a link to more videos on our YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel is a great wealth of resources. You have past webinars that we've done on a variety of topics, as well as more kind of demo videos like this.
David asks, it's my understanding that making a copy of a diagram is only available to the Quizlet Teacher/Premium account. Is that correct? And I can answer that because it's a little bit confusing. So anyone can create a diagram for free. Students can create a diagram, teachers can create a diagram. And the only limitation there is that you can only add up to 8 locations to your diagram. So this Australia diagram is a great example. So it has 8 locations. So if a teacher or a student wanted to go copy it and save it to their account, they could do that. Actually, this one has custom shapes on it. That was my bad. So let me start over. So you can add up to 8 locations, and as long as they're just points. So if we wanted to go back to one of our draft diagrams, we can show what that looks like. Or can we make it a new one? Or we can look at the brain.
Let's look at the brain. We can add more points to that.
So if you want to copy a diagram that has more than 8 points, or that has custom shapes, you'll need to have a Quizlet teacher account. But otherwise, you can copy any of them. So there's a little bit of nuance there. But in general, if you're looking at a diagram and it has only these plain points, the little circles, and there are fewer than 8 of them, you can copy that and you don't have to be a paid Quizlet teacher. If it has more than 8 points or it has custom shapes, then you'll need the upgraded Quizlet teacher account. And that comes with many other features other than the diagram creation tools as well.
Yeah, and I can try to find a better example of a set with just those points. They're really visually beautiful. Custom shapes is something kind of more advanced if you want that level of detail or if you need that level of detail. So there's a lot you can do with these points. But I did just want to say while we're on this page, something that's really cool is if I don't like the shape I made, or I had to change it a bit, or I re-uploaded a new diagram after adding all of these terms and definitions on it, I can actually remove this shape from my diagram, but keep my term. So that means that the next time I go in and maybe I'm just creating a new shape or I want a different thing, I can actually start typing and you'll see it'll populate there. It's ready to be linked to this new area on your diagram. So I just want to make sure that if you upload an image, enter all your terms, and then realize, this isn't the best image, maybe I found a better one, or I'd like to redo that custom shape again, it's just not quite right. You can easily do that by just choosing to remove from diagram and then actually relink it to a new point that you've added.
Carmen asks, are diagrams multilingual? Can you search for them in English and use them in another language? How is the process of translating?
It's a good question. So we get that question a lot, actually, and I think that I don't know if we necessarily need to discuss it with diagrams, because diagram sets would be the same as any kind of text-based set on Quizlet. Quizlet doesn't do translation. What we do is we actually support audio, text-to-speech audio, based on the terms and definitions that you have entered. So if I enter these words, and that's why if we go back into edit, that's why we prompt you with, what language is this? So that we know which audio to match to your terms and definitions, so that as your students are studying your content, they're actually hearing the correct pronunciation. If I were to, accidentally choose Chinese or French or a different language, the audio would sound wrong. It would sound garbled. It would sound like a bad fake accent. Like it just wouldn't work. So that's what it means when we ask you to select your language. But all we provide is the audio. It's not like you would make a copy of the set and you could choose French to translate it. That's not what this tool does. You would still have to write in your French term. Though we do give you all of these great symbols and letter types to support that effort.
Great. I see a couple of questions about sort of how diagrams work with other parts of Quizlet. So someone asks, can I add a diagram to an existing set of terms? And someone else asks, can I add a diagram to a folder or to a class?
Yeah, great questions. So yes, you can add a diagram to an existing set of terms. So let's go back into my account. And again, this is my latest activity feed, which is kind of my home feed if I log into Quizlet. And you can see this is just a text-based set, basic vocab. If I just go to the set page, I will see that I have my terms, my definitions. This is a very advanced set, as you can see. I was just testing something out. But if I go into Edit It, I will see this diagram option. So let's say in the past I've created a cell, like a cell set, right? Cell anatomy. And I've just added my terms and definitions, and maybe I've uploaded, or added individual pictures to show those areas. Now I can actually just drag and drop in an actual picture of a cell and link all of these terms and definitions to areas on that diagram. So it's a great opportunity to go back, especially for you science teachers, go back to some of the sets you've made on Quizlet and add this extra layer of context to them. And again, like I showed before, that linking feature of you already have the terms, you already have the definitions. As soon as you start typing, we're going to give you options to link to an area on the diagram that will save you a lot of time in that process.
Well, Amalia, how much time do we have left in today's webinar?
I think we have about 2 minutes.
Okay.
So
I see one question that's actually not about diagrams, but something I wanted to highlight because I think it popped up when you were giving an overview of the teacher resources. Kim asks, is Quizlet now integrated with Google Classroom?
Great question. Do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. So we have I would say, a pretty lightweight integration with Google Classroom. If you are a Google Classroom user and a Quizlet user, when you go to share your set, you'll see an option to share on Google Classroom. And basically, if you haven't previously connected your account on Quizlet to your Google Classroom account, there's like a 2-step process to do that. And then once you do, you can share your content as an announcement, an assignment, or a question. So it really just removes that step of needing to copy and paste back and forth between Quizlet and Google Classroom. And we make it pretty simple. So there's like those 3 steps when you first get set up, and then once you do that, it's super simple to share directly from Quizlet right into your Google Classroom. And you can also, if you have multiple courses in your classroom, you also make it easy to pick the right course so that you're not sharing government with American history and American history with world history, that government's content is being shared in your government class.
Right. So. And again, a great place for some of these other questions, or if you want a deeper dive into what Laura was explaining, same from that drop-down, you get quick access to our Help Center. If I were to type in Google Classroom, I would see all of these help centers, or these help articles pop up. So it's a great way to learn more about this feature. Just visit our Help Center. So before we go, I do want to highlight, again, more resources for teachers, and we will be including some of these links in our follow-up email, and of course, we'll be sending the recording of this webinar if you want to watch it again, or if you want to share it with others, so you can access the links that way again. But for teachers, Quizlet.com/teachers, that's that teacher page that has a lot of quick links to other great resources for you. The Quizlet Help Center, which we just talked about, the Quizlet blog. We actually have articles tied specifically for teachers, highlighting great ways teachers are using Quizlet creatively, adapting it for in-class use, all sorts of amazing ideas that you can practically apply in your own classroom. So make sure that you access that. And then if you're interested in hearing more updates, hearing about new webinar opportunities, make sure to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, which is where we update the world about what we're doing. And that's it. I think that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, and we will, I guess, see you some other time. Join us again.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.